growing globally competitive companies.
Yes.
This is part of the $100 million
Yes.
that's been given to associations that the government thought associations like my colleagues here from ASME, SBF.
I'm quite sure
and all the
you
rest.
guys will also be eligible.
Yes, and I guess probably that's in the right direction. There's a correlationship between economy as well as how strong the association is. Case in point, if you look at it Italy, in terms of fashion, in terms of textiles, in terms of furniture, they have a very strong association. So much so that even at in hairdressing salon in Italy, they can't operate without their business federation giving them a license, giving them training. So therefore, I think there's an authority in there. Now, looking at this 100 million, though it's a good amount that's been given up. But we
Over 5 years, huh? Don't get too
over 5
excited.
years,
It's over
yes.
5 years, huh?
But we realize there's always this unspoken doctrine about co-payment. That means, in the other way, it basically says that in order to consume these funds, you actually have to be a co-payment of 70%, 30%. That means 70% from government, the other 30% from the private sector or association. 100 million, if you look at it, 30% of that, you not consume the 100% of the $100 million. That means the whole association, all the rest of it has to come up with the 50 million to match up. And if you look at the case of the current state of affair of the association around, I don't think there is some $50 million in all their cash cohort. Right, so one part of this is, well, there's 100 million, perhaps at what criteria we should look at it? Should it be co-payment basis?
I don't think the criteria has been fully flushed out yet. I think that's still being worked out.
Yes, so you have not been perhaps want to
So
put
you
in a
want to
point
make
for
sure that
consideration. Yes.
To put in this, yes.
The consideration of this would be that a lot of activities that the association engage in are non-revenue generating. For instance, I think we've seen association looking at industry branding. Industry branding, as you put in, try to brand a certain industry that no local wanted to join. That has no revenue. The other part we did, association do a lot of survey. They survey among their members. They conduct policies and seminars, like case in point, this type of seminars. There's no revenue generating as well. So what I'm trying to say is, perhaps if the guideline has more been firmed up, you might want to look at certain non-revenue generating activities that maybe you can allow the flexibility of 100% funding instead of a co-payment basis.
But those activities must therefore be still positioning for helping the companies to
naturally, after all,
it's like branding
all
and
the
all those
association like
it's
SB or
like,
SBF,
yeah.
it is the members who will, if you are having activities that's non-business related, no members will come.
Not so much non-business related, but rather like you say, key things like branding, like positioning and all that, which there's no revenue up front, but those are very key to really helping companies take off.
We understand there was a program that Spring administered called LEAD program that was meant for this association. I think the current paradigm is 70%, 30% kind of co-payment basis. So therefore, if you can start looking at all the non-revenue generating events and therefore allows the liberation of it to be higher funding, or perhaps 100%, then that will then incentivize the association to do a lot more. If not on the basis of any activities, the other 30% they had to bleed, it's a bit tough then. And then it also didn't allow them to accelerate their growth, and didn't allow them to actually to do a lot more for their members.
But I hope the focus won't be just the numbers of things that the associations do, but really the impact that it drives eventually, lah. That's a different. Because otherwise it becomes the numbers, a number of activities versus. Not that I say that will happen, but what I'm saying is
a
you
good
have to
point
be
on this
careful.
is normally impactful programs may not be revenue generating.
Yeah, correct. No, I understand.
Now touching a bit more on the smaller players, I think there was some tweaking on the M&A because I think we are giving quite a bit of M&A allowance for those mergers. But if you look at the smaller players, the SMEs, the M&A legislation, which was actually in the Companies Act in 2006 or those years, have now been basically sort of crystallized from the tax perspective. I think the revenue has come out with circulars and on M&A, so that basically amalgamations would be made simpler for companies, so that they could be done. Amalgamations could be done on a most tax-effective, tax-neutral basis. This is to encourage amalgamations and mergers and acquisitions. The only thing is that it follows the Company Act framework. So a lot of these things would have to be, this sort of incentive is actually given to companies in Singapore. Now, if you're talking about if you want to promote SMEs to grow as an alternative option to look at mergers and acquisitions, maybe we could go beyond the company law framework, extend some of these benefits and concessions, which are currently applicable only to companies, to, for example, sole proprietors, that actually want to go into to acquire other sole proprietors or even acquires other businesses, so that the tax neutrality is actually filtered down to the smaller players.